The Unofficial 40 will return. This week we'll have one still. But we've got a bonus podcast, I guess we can call it for you. And that is our conversation with Toby Rowland, who was kind enough to sit down with us for almost an hour and a half and just talk things, all things Sooner, and all things being the play-by-play man at the University of Oklahoma. So here is our conversation, my conversation with Toby Rowland. Okay, so we've got a special Sooner Scoop podcast today because apparently this is like an annual ritual now. We're joined by the voice of the Sooner. He tried to do what he did last time.
I'm waiting for the introduction.
Which started talking before he's introduced.
Learned my lesson.
So you successfully did it, I would say.
Yeah.
Just the fact that I pointed it out.
Yeah.
So, But Toby Rowland, voice of the Sooners, is back with us.
Thanks for having me
in
back.
the studio.
I'm not sure why I'm back.
Your voice sounds glorious.
You.
I can understand why you're the voice of the Sooners.
Oh, it's just the fancy equipment you've got in your studio. Mm-hmm. It's not very nice equipment. It really is nice equipment.
I kind of we've been talking about doing this for about like a month maybe. Like, hey, should we catch back up and do a podcast again? And so it's kind of put me in a position where I didn't ever want to say anything to you, like text you or... Not that we text all the time.
You didn't feel like you were bothering me?
No, I didn't. I wanted to save all my questions for today.
I get you.
Not that I've planned any of this out at all. Really, I probably don't even know what I'm going to talk about.
You're winging it today?
I'm winging it today.
Okay.
I always kind of wing it on the podcast.
I like that. I don't like it when you have a list of questions. Check. Let's have a conversation.
I don't want to be talk show host guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just... I believe in having conversations on the radio. I think you taught me that as much as anybody.
Good.
Because we would just kind of show up and just... talk for an hour.
It is a common mistake, I think, in our industry, and I try to talk to youngsters about this, is when you're doing an interview, just to come in with a list of questions and go down the list. What's my next question?
Yeah.
Because you miss out on so many opportunities to engage in a conversation about something somebody just said.
Now, do you get being the voice of the Sooners, do you get... I know there's people out there like Harry. But
Harry James Taylor?
Yeah, Harry James Taylor, who tweets me every morning still.
Congratulations.
Even though I'm pretty sure he's just listening to you. But you get a lot of people that just come up to you wanting advice about how to become the next play-by-play voice of the Oklahoma Sooners?
No. I'm teaching a class this year. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I'm teaching a class at OU on play-by-play, and or co-teaching it. But no, that doesn't happen a lot. But there are occasions where young men and women who are wanting to go into the profession will email or reach out or whatever, and want to. Usually, they want me to listen to their
demo reel.
Yeah. Listen to this and give me some advice. That's usually what it is. So that's always flattering.
Yeah. You literally, like you and Matt Pinto and, why am I forgetting Dave Hunziker's name? Yeah. You guys are the faces of play-by-play in the state. I mean, there's some honor in that.
Oh yeah, no, there was a lot of honor in that. I would add Bruce over at Tulsa, who's been doing it longer than any of us in this state. But that's
nobody
cool.
cares about Tulsa though.
That's cool. Now, come on now. That's let Eddie fight that fight.
Well, when they unblock Eddie, I'll start being nice to him.
By the way, could I just say at the beginning, since I was on last, like when you invited me on, was it a year ago now?
Yes.
I had no idea you were doing a podcast.
Right.
Now I am a faithful listener.
Really?
Yeah. I've listened to every podcast since I was on.
You could probably, if you wanted to, take some credit for launching this podcast.
As far as I'm concerned, it hasn't been launched yet because I still haven't heard any advertising on here. So I don't think you're making any money yet. But I do think you've gained a lot of listeners, right?
Why don't you slip me a number to Landers Chevrolet or Landers?
Are you
Chrysler
talking about the all-new Landers Chevrolet of Norman? Landers Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram?
Yeah, those people.
What was I saying? Oh, but I've become a faithful listener. I look forward to the new one dropping every time. When you go a couple of weeks and don't release one, I start to have withdrawals. So I love the repertoire between you and Josh and Eddie.
You have had a role in fostering Eddie's radio career. I believe he's
I'm
probably
trying to
set up
compliment
some
you.
remotes.
You're turning the subject. I'm trying to compliment you. Okay. I like the show. I like the podcast. I like the banter. Don't let. I heard you say something in the most recent one about people want you to quit messing around so much.
Yeah.
Don't listen to that. That's what makes it.
It's very
fun.
And like I had this conversation with people the other day, and people love on our message boards to critique radio shows.
Get out of here.
No, it's true. I know this is a crazy concept, but this is true. And I always tell people, you're on the internet all the time. Like you're not. You know everything there is to know about OU football that people could possibly know, unless you're a coach or a player. Mm-hmm. Like you're inside the program, literally inside the program. Like you know who the backup third
you're the 1%.
string, right guard is. So you're not listening to radio the way the general fan is listening to radio. Like they are judging your show, whether it's good or bad, based on how much you talk about OU. That's like, for a lot of people that are hardcore OU fans, that's all they care about.
I understand that, but I like the way you do it. I learn a lot by listening to your podcast. I'm not.
That's not true.
I wouldn't know. That's the reason I listen to it. I enjoy the banter, but I am not in the world of recruiting. I don't follow it closely, so I listen.
I don't really either.
I listen to your podcast for you to let me know what's going on
in recruiting.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I like listening to your opinions on OU and other things, but
let me ask you
especially
this.
when Josh starts talking about names, I don't know who they are, and I get excited about them. And I'll be
you
honest
can learn
with
how to pronounce
signing,
people's names early. Like if Brian Asamoah signs, it's not Asamoah or whatever.
I think I'm allowed to say names, but this signing day, I was the most educated I've ever been about the incoming OU class because of this podcast, Carey Murdock.
Really?
Yes. So thank you for that.
Well,
now,
you're welcome.
I will say this.
By the way, I have to stop you.
My expectations for this freshman class are too high also because of this podcast. Because you got me so excited about them, you and Josh, that now I'm expecting great things out of C.D. Lamb
one of them,
and Charleston Rambo and all
Grant
these guys.
Calcaterra.
All of them. I have too high of expectations because of you guys.
But that's the thing about it. Like by the way, I just have to, an aside, you could talk about recruiting because the guy that does sidelines for OSU, that's part of his job.
I've been told not to.
Yeah, but we all know OU's compliance department is one of the more overreaching departments in the history of college.
Well, I'm not going to let them overreach me.
Colleges.
I just don't think I'm supposed to say names of people who aren't signed. So I can talk about
an obscure podcast.
The world of recruiting. I could tell you it's not an obscure podcast. It's the #1 rated podcast in
Norman.
In this, on this street.
I think Plank is coming for us.
Hey, now he's got a good podcast.
He does.
Too. Yeah.
He has a fantastic podcast.
I'm supposed to promote that one.
Well, go ahead.
I feel like I co-host that one, so I should probably.
Yeah. Well, tell people about that podcast and what you guys
Sooner
are doing.
Sports. Sooner Sports does a podcast. We put out two.
Maybe someday they'll let Lincoln Riley come on my podcast if I let you promote yours.
Sooner Sports puts out a podcast. We started this last year. Rather than doing daily reports, we used to do these daily, 5-minute reports that all our radio affiliates would play. And so we changed and started doing bi-weekly podcasts, sometimes 3 times a week, and send it out to all of our affiliates and anybody who wants to listen to it. Obviously, you can get it on iTunes.
And sometimes you'll interview Joe C., and sometimes you'll have assistants or,
lots. I think everybody in the athletic department has been on it at some point or another. But it's good inside stuff. Yeah. Chris does a great job. I mean, he's Mr. Radio.
He is the first person, and I jokingly tell him that it's his fault that he's the first person to ever put me on radio.
Chris Plank, really? Yeah. I didn't know this.
Back in my Tulsa days.
So it's not true? You said you jokingly tell him that.
He takes great pride in it, he says.
Okay.
I don't know why he would do that.
Yeah.
But he unleashed me in my radio career. I'm sure I was awful back in 1999.
I don't know if there is a more versatile person in this industry that I've met than Chris Plank.
Yeah.
He knows how to do everything. And he's a great host and a sideline guy and all the
he's nerdy.
behind-the-scenes stuff. He knows how everything about equipment.
That's a positive. He's a nerd. He likes equipment. He
enjoys
he's pretty cool. Broadcasting.
Yeah. He knows how to do everything.
See, this is where you're being old man Toby. Like, being a nerd has a totally different meaning nowadays.
He knows how to do everything. Yeah.
People are proud to be nerds now.
Is that true?
Yes. Let me get your take on the eclipse. I'm sure you had some fascinating take.
Okay, so I've been looking forward to the eclipse for months, ever since I read that it was going to happen. I really heavily debated, and I talked about this on my radio show, of going up into Kansas to watch the eclipse.
Because it was more of an eclipse up there.
Path of totality.
Okay.
I heard your radio show, the first 30 minutes of it this morning, on my drive to my radio show.
Okay.
Path of death, as Curtis called it. Am I right?
I did watch a 360-degree video on Facebook this morning of people that were in the path of totality, and it literally, the lights turn out.
It looked awesome.
Yeah.
We weren't in the path of totality.
No.
We were in the 85% range, 84% range. So anyway, I've been looking forward to this for months. Talking about it on the show. They've been making fun of me because I've been talking about it so much. They convinced me that it would be stupid to go up to Kansas. So I stayed home yesterday. God's honest truth. I got a lawn chair. I sat in my front yard with my wife and my son, and I played Total Eclipse of the Heart on my phone.
I saw a stupid story this morning saying that iTunes had a 500% increase in downloads of
How could
Total
you not
Eclipse
have
of the
that
Heart.
song yesterday?
But when you had one the day before, I mean, so you had 500 people download it.
Well, that's a great song, by the way. So I'm not going to let you dog on Bonnie Tyler.
I'm not dogging on Bonnie Tyler. I danced many, illegal Catholic dances to Total Eclipse of the Heart when I was in junior high.
Thoroughly underwhelmed by the eclipse.
How did you watch it? Did you get special
I didn't get glasses. I didn't get glasses. I went the 2 days before and tried to find glasses and couldn't find them anywhere. So I didn't get glasses. I thought I'm just going to let the darkness sweep over me and just see what my spirit feels during the eclipse. And it got a little shady.
Uh-huh.
And then 105 hit, and I thought, all right, here we go. And nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then it gradually started getting light again, and I was disappointed. Now,
So
I thought it would get darker than it did here.
Yeah.
Turns out 15% of the sun still lights up the world pretty good.
Yeah.
That sun's pretty good up there.
That thing ain't burning out anytime soon.
No, it's pretty good. So I'm determined. It's a fascinating thing that happened. I geek out on the science behind it, the fact that they can predict it, all that kind of stuff. And I vow to, in 2024, be in the path of totality, because all those people experience,
Oklahoma a little bit, right?
It gets like southeast corner, like Broken Bow area.
You can go stay in Bob from Cement's cabin and do it.
Well, I asked him. He says he's hiking the rates. Says 5,000 a night.
He won't give you a special rate.
5,000 a night's what he told me. So I'm fascinated by it, but I was underwhelmed by what happened here in Oklahoma.
It was disappointing. I have, you know what, like a neutral density filter is. You were in TV.
I don't know what that means.
That's like, it's basically like sunglasses for your lens on your camera.
Okay.
So for a point and shoot camera, an DSLR, you have these neutral density filters that screw on to the end of your camera. I stacked 4 of them together, and I could see it, and I could take pictures of it.
Did they turn out good?
Yeah, I think I could probably pull some up. I mean, this is nothing special.
That's pretty cool. That's a good thinking on your part.
But being able to see exactly how much of it was covered was cool. But the fact that I was just like you. I was like, okay, 105, I'm going to go get this great pic. And I thought it'd be one of those perfect circles with like light coming out from it. None of that. Mm-hmm. Just massively disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not mad at the sun or the moon about it. I'm mad at my own expectations, and I vowed to be in the path of totality next time, because I want to experience. I'm not going to die and not experience a full eclipse, because I think it would be pretty cool.
Did you see that the official Twitter account for the moon blocked the official Twitter account for the sun yesterday?
That's gold. I didn't know that.
That was fantastic.
Well done by somebody. Yes.
Okay, so I think the one thing that we should start is probably what happened June 7th. I believe
that's right.
Bob Stoops stepping down. All of the hard work that you and I put into just being able to allow Bob Stoops to be tolerable of us when we're around him, all gone.
That's not true. The total
But we
eclipse
put
of
in
the
a lot
Sooner
of-
Athletic Department, June 7th.
we put in a lot of work
That
to just
is
get
true.
Bob Stoops to a place where he didn't want to kill us, and all that's just gone out the window now.
Yeah.
Did you? That was kind of my first thought. Was that one of your first thoughts?
My first thought was, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I was at the golf course. It was summer. Summer had just started for me because the baseball team lost. So, and I've been looking forward to playing golf and hadn't had any chance. And so I'm at the golf course with my son, and we're on the 15th hole at the trails, and I got a text that said, "Call me right away," from someone at OU. And so I called him back.
Can I ask you what time that was? Before or after 11 a.m.?
You're in the neighborhood. You're in the neighborhood.
The only reason I'm saying is because...
I know what you're saying. I've heard the whole story. By the way, mad props to you for the way you handled that.
I don't want props.
I'm giving them to you.
It's journalistically, it's uncool.
No, I don't care. I don't think that's true, and we need to change that for journalism as far as I'm concerned, because nobody gives a rip who reports it first.
Yeah.
No one gives a rip. And I know it matters in the journalism world, but it's time the journalism world woke up to reality that all people care about is that you get it right. And if you add in kind of doing something ethical, which you did something ethical that day, and I know you don't want to admit that, but everyone who knew and waited for the right thing to be done, I think did something. That's not to say people who didn't were unethical, but I appreciate it out of you. I'm going to be honest, you surprised me a little bit on that day. Because I would have guessed, if you asked me, if you knew, would you report it, I would have guessed you would have reported it. But you didn't.
What do you think the percentage among all media in the market? How big of an idiot was I? Like, what's the percentage of people that wouldn't have reported it? And just guessing.
Well, there was several that knew that didn't. There was. I bet there was a good dozen people that knew that didn't. There's a whole lot of people at the television stations and at newspapers that would have, like they did, would have ran with it right away.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You
what
get
the
into a
percentage
TV
is.
station.
You got
no
to.
doubt, yeah.
Your boss is going to hammer you if you don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was at the golf course. I get a call, and they said, "How soon can you be in a coat and tie at the TV studio?" I was like, "I'm in shorts and a hat, and I'm at the trails, and I live an hour away from here, so it ain't happening."
Wow.
It ain't happening.
You were down in Norman at the golf course.
Get somebody else to do it. And they were like, we need you here. And I was like, what the heck's going on? I was like, what?
Do you not
And
have
they
a
were
dressing room
"We
where you have
can't."
us like a spare suit and tie?
Well, I needed a shower and everything. No, I don't. I this has never happened before, so maybe I should. I could have showered at the trails, I guess, and put on, but I don't have a suit and tie down here. But anyway, my initial reaction was, let's let somebody else do it. Call Chad or Chris, or there's lots of people who could, whatever's going on. They couldn't tell me. That was the deal. I was like, what's going on? They're like, we can't tell you. And I was like, man, listen, it's summer. I really would prefer not to blow up my day, run home, shower, put on a coat and tie, and come back. Can you, if I'm going to do that, can you at least give me a hint as to why I'm doing that? And they told me what was going on.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll go put on a coat and tie and shower. I was absolutely
So you
stunned.
ran all the way home?
Oh, yeah. I went home, showered, came back. Well, they moved the press conference back, as you well know. It was originally going to be like 2:30 or something like that, and so it allowed
They had to
me-
get the team meeting moved up so they could tell them first.
It ended up allowing plenty of time to get home and get back. But stunned, shocked. I don't know what my first thought was. There goes all that hard work, because we knew right away it was going to be Lincoln, and I'm going to miss working with Bob, but I'm very much looking forward to Lincoln, and so. Yeah, I don't know that my first reaction was, darn, I had built a good rapport with that guy, and that's all out the window, because I don't have any doubt that it's going to be easy getting along with him.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, so kind of just backstory, and I've told this story before, but, when Bob called me, it was about an hour and a half after I texted him saying, hey, I'm hearing you're going to retire. And I'm hearing it a lot. So if this is all BS, just tell me, and I'll let everyone know it's BS and get the word out there. and some other things. And I told him I didn't, this was not something I'm looking to break, that this is something he should be allowed to announce, And then when he called me back, he told me that, it was his goal for Lincoln Riley to, succeed him. But there was a little bit of like, okay, well, but that's got to go through the proper channels, but that is what I want to happen. But, and he went into explaining why he was doing it to me. Like, I don't know. I didn't ask him to. I think he felt like, okay, if you're not going to, run with this, I'm going to tell you this is what it's about. And I know what it was. It was because I texted him. I said, people are saying it's because of your health. Yeah. And he was very sensitive about that. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like one of those things, like, how it goes with Bob. Like, if something not gets under his skin, but if he hears something that is not true, is completely false, like, he gets fired up. Like, he wants you to know this is what's going on. And, that's what's happening. And all that stuff that's out there is not. Like, he can't wait to debunk something.
Right.
So when he called, he was like, look, it's not about my health. And he explained all the reasons. And to be honest, after we got off that phone call, I was like, yeah, it's just time. I mean, he just felt like it was time. And I even had people like that worked at OU that were like, what's really going on? And I was just like,
I still got that question today.
Yeah. I mean, what's really going on?
I saw Joe Simpson at the Atlanta Braves game last week.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
or 2 weeks ago. Cool. And he said, "So tell me, what's really going on?"
Yeah, and it's like, I got it so many times. I was like, man, am I being naive? Like, because I talked to Bob, and just when you talk to someone face to face like that, or person to person, I really got the sense that this was not because of heart disease. This was not because of his kids. It was just a whole bunch of things all together that made him realize that it was time. And to be honest, I think a lot of the new recruiting rules, official visits for juniors and stuff like that, it's like these coaches are, and people always they come out with he's making $6 million, he should work 25 hours a day. He should find a way to put that extra hour in there. But it's like, at some point, you have to have a life. And I think after 18 years, you see all this stuff. It's just the social media stuff, Bob never liked. The way recruiting had changed so much. I don't think it was a lot of work for him. A lot more work than it used to be. And I just really feel like, and I felt like at the time, like, yeah, he's sick of doing this job. No matter how much money you pay someone, if you're burnt out, you're burnt out. You're no good to anybody.
How old are you?
45.
If you had enough money to retire in 10 years, wouldn't you?
Hell yes.
Yeah,
I'd retire right now.
A lot of people love what they do.
You think I want to keep doing a 5:30 a.m. radio show and run a website that is about as demanding a job as you can have?
I think you like what you do.
I do. I'm a workaholic. I can't do anything else.
The vast majority of people, if they had the option to retire at age 56, is that what Bob was?
Yes.
They would. But don't you think it would be fascinating if OU would do a 30 for 30 on that 24 hours? Like,
yeah, it'd be really cool.
Like, because they won the softball national championship the night before.
It would almost be like that the day that OJ, with Arnold Palmer played his last tournament.
People didn't die, but yes. Yeah. But that 24 hours is unbelievable because OU won the national championship. Bob Stoops retires. Lincoln Riley's the head coach. The discussions in Joe's office that day, Lincoln finding out, Lincoln calling his wife at the water park, them rushing home, the media all trying to figure out what's going on and who's going to break the story, and everybody racing down for the press conference. And I think that would be a fascinating movie or documentary.
I have to put my fat ass on TV. I wouldn't want to do that.
You'd be the star of the show, man.
No.
And right in the middle of it all, Carey Murdock.
Then Dusty would get mad. Probably.
Dusty knew.
I know.
Maybe I wasn't supposed to say that.
No, I mean, look, here's the thing. Like, when I found out, I had to, and this is...
The hardest part was playing dumb that day.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go in and tell my radio boss, like, hey, this is what's going on. And Dusty had sent me a text earlier that morning, and it simply said, what did it say? It was one of those, like, I knew what he was, he said, it was along the lines of, I'm going to tell you, I heard something crazy. And so I just texted him back, and I said, Bob Stoops retiring, and he, like, called me immediately. And like, I know he was on the air, and he wanted to report it, but I wasn't going to report it. So he was like, can we report this? I was like, don't attach my name to it. Like, we literally, and Mark Rogers was calling me, and it was literally like, can we report this? I was like, no, not. I was like, if you guys want to report that he's leaving based on your sources, that's fine, but I am not putting it out there that Bob Stoops is retiring. And I hadn't told them anything about what I knew or that I talked to Bob, but it got back to them that I had told Baker, my boss, that and I, he had to tell a couple of other people just for logistics, and then it fell apart. Yeah. And it's just like, I think I feel bad about that part, but it's your employer. You gotta tell them to be ready for the biggest news that's going to hit the state in 10 years.
Yeah. A wild day. Wild day.
I didn't like it. I mean, it was just so weird being there at the press conference. It was just all surreal.
It was a very surreal day.
Like, you're
much
just sitting
more
there
surreal than the eclipse.
And you're having a resignation press conference and a hiring press conference all at the same time.
Never seen anything like it. I've never seen the passage of power in one setting that friendly and
amicable,
and yeah, it's odd. It doesn't happen like that.
No,
it doesn't happen like that. Usually, if you are of Bob Stoops' magnitude, you coach until you're too old to be good anymore. Nobody has the guts to tell you you're not good anymore. And then they want to go in a completely different direction. And, or you're not any good and you get fired, and that guy's not going to be anywhere around when you introduce the next head coach.
And his staff you got to hire staff and
nothing changed.
Whole new people. Yeah.
Nothing. They brought in Ruff and McNeil. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know anything has happened. And Bob Stoops quit this summer.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But, I mean, even just the thing of Bob up there talking about leaving, and walking away, in my head, I kept saying, I can't believe this is happening right in front of me, but it's happening right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And it was just, like you said, it was a surreal feeling. And it's just, I don't know. It's like it's like you're having a funeral and a marriage together.
That's a good way to put it. So
that's how I kind of felt like. And I know Bob's not dying or anything, but it's just like, that's all. And it's. I'll say this: I think it's unnatural in this day and age for a coach to be around as long as Bob has been.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's just.
I think he was the longest tenured in the country.
And I'm not. Yeah,
Beamer
he and what's his name in Iowa?
Yeah.
Kirk Ferentz. But like the way that everything works now, it's like, and with OU fans, it's still happening because, like you said, Bob just walked away. But, and I don't know if every fan base is like this, but OU fans tend to hold grudges. Like everything that's ever happened bad, they still remember it. It's like if somebody gets injured, let's say, I don't, like with Rodney Anderson, he breaks his neck.
Are you about to rip on OU fans because you just admonished for
no.
Eddie Radosevich?
I'm just saying this is the nature of the OU fan.
Okay.
Like they hold everything bad that's ever happened to like Texas Tech. Fans still can't get over Texas Tech from last year. Like they still, if something goes, and before that it was the Baylor game, mm-hmm. Where Mike was chewing out Julian Wilson on the sideline. So it's like I've always explained it. It's like a bad marriage. It's like if you forget to pick up the milk, all of a sudden you get hit with a haymaker of, well, you slept with another woman. It's like, it's just.
But that's not unique to OU.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when you stick around for 18 years, There's a lot of things that people remember and bring back up when you forget to bring home the milk.
Right.
And they just throw it back in your face.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's hard to stick around for 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, like Urban Meyer, he burned out at Florida, had to take some time off to come back. But he's not a guy that's built to be at a place for 15 years.
No chance. Nor is Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, Harbaugh might not be built to stay at a place for 5 years.
I think you could be right about that. Yeah. You okay?
I definitely have been talking too much today. My voice is not going to make it. Okay, so Lincoln Riley said, and I'll say this, from the first time I interviewed Lincoln Riley, or saw him in an interview environment, my first thoughts were, yeah, that's a climber. That guy's going somewhere. Like, he really has it together. And you've gotten to know him, as the offensive coordinator. You've probably done some, I don't know, did he ever fill in for Bob on a radio show? Or
No. I honestly,
you guys have that, Coach's Corner?
We have the assistant coaches show that Chris Plank hosts.
That's what I thought, okay.
So I've never done that. I've never had him in that setting, and he didn't fill in for Bob. I've interviewed Lincoln a few times. We did the Caravan Stop the other night. We've had, 2 or 3 occasions since he's been hired to be in a kind of a interview setting in front of people. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I'm kind of eager to know. I would say there's a good chance you've talked to him more than I have at this point, because you're at post-practice media gatherings and all that kind of stuff.
And I'll say this, like, he is the guy, as long as you want to ask questions, he'll stand there and answer them.
Yeah. Right now.
Like, now that he's the head coach, like, you can see Mike Houck kind of presides over it, and he's like, okay, it's been long enough, like 2 more questions. But when he was the offensive coordinator, he would let you interview him for 40 minutes if there were 40 minutes worth of questions.
Yeah. And I anticipate he'll be that way, although you never know what affects the stress of the job, and you lose a game and the pressures, and people start to criticize and all that kind of stuff come on. When you're young, sometimes that jades you a little bit. So it'll be interesting to watch. But we're about to be together a bunch.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting. I don't know how he's going to be in a pregame interview or postgame interview. I think he's going to be more talkative than Bob. We do a 5-minute pregame interview for the radio broadcast, and that's a good 10, 12 questions sometimes for Bob. Sometimes, he's in late week game mode, and
let me ask you: do you go up and do that in his office, like on a Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
Thursday or Friday with Bob. It'll always be Friday with Lincoln. I've been told.
Have you been in Lincoln's office?
I have not yet. No.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and I've seen pictures. So I think he'll be more long-winded than Bob in that setting and stuff, but I don't know that yet. And then I'm really eager to find out the 1-hour shows, how that's going to go. There's been a couple of questions he's been pretty guarded about in some of these public settings.
Yeah, he does. I mean, that's he doesn't differ from Bob in that he does like to. I didn't even joke. I just tried to ask him about Kyler Murray's.
Loved it. We played the clip. I hope that's okay. We played it on our show. It was a great clip.
I would play your clip. So.
Yeah, but that's a good example of.
That's the first time I've really seen him be, take a question like that and make it funny, make it light.
Right.
Whereas Bob would just give you a 1-word answer, no.
Right.
But I think with Lincoln, people always say this, like, oh, he reminds me so much of Bob. But I think, like, where you really notice the difference is, like, Bob is Youngstown, Ohio. Like, Mike's very similar. We've known Mark Mangino a little bit over the years. It's that very kind of direct, demeanor that they have. When they're joking around, it could easily be confused for just being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, Lincoln Riley is so Texas, like so Oklahoma, Texas. Mm-hmm. Like, he's using, anecdotes like, dogs on the porch. And he said something the other day, too. I was like, man, he's country. Like,
yeah, he's from Muleshoe.
You're
from a place called Muleshoe. You got country running
I'm
through.
comfortable with that. I mean, you went to high school in Indiana, right?
I did, yeah. I grew up in Mustang, but I went to high school in Indiana. Yeah.
So, I mean, you got a little bit of, but like I grew up in southwest Oklahoma. I mean, my summers were spent with guys that would hail bay with bay hail, and then play baseball at night. No, play double headers at night. Like they were country.
Bale hay.
Bale hay, yeah.
There's no baying of hail.
Bale hay.
One of those was right, yeah.
Bay hail? Is that what I said?
Bay hail, yeah.
Bale hay, okay.
That would be amazing if you could bay hail. I think where they are right now, the difference in Bob Stoops right now and Lincoln Riley right now and what I've been able to witness is, I emceed an event the other day, and if it was Bob, we'd meet like behind the curtain before we come out, and Bob would say, "Here's how long you got me," and I don't mean this to be an abrasive way. He's done it a lot.
Yeah.
So he'd say, I got to be out of here by this time. And I'll say, is there anything you want me to ask you or not ask you? I always said that to Bob. And he'd say, yeah, ask me this or don't ask me this or whatever. But it was very much his show. So Lincoln shows up for this event, and he's like, walk me through it. What's going to happen? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm going to bring you out. I'm going to ask you this many questions. He's like, how long can you stay, Coach? And he's like, you tell me. How long do you want me to be here? And so he's learning everything for the first time.
Yeah.
And at some point, I'm like, wait a second. You're the head coach. I mean, you're the boss here. It's a weird dynamic between how Bob would approach a situation and how Lincoln right now approaches everything for the first time. He's like, how am I supposed to do this kind of a situation?
Well, I think Bob had to learn that too.
I'm sure he did.
Do you remember the Mike Ziegenhorn deal?
I remember Mike, but I don't know what you're talking about.
So they had this show in Tulsa called You Make the Call.
Right, yeah.
And they came, it might have been 2001. Might have been after they won the national championship. But so they came, KTUL, I think it is, ABC in Tulsa. So they came all the way to Norman, brought their truck, set up a live feed with Bob Stoops in his backyard. This was before he lived in the mansion he lives in now. It's his first big house. And so they do an interview with him, and I think it goes like 15 minutes. And the name of the show was You Make the Call, which they took calls. And so they did the interview, and Bob did his 15 minutes, which they probably didn't tell him they definitely didn't tell him how long they were going to need him or how long they were going to interview him. So it's like this extended Sunday night sports show with a 15-minute interview with Bob. And so without telling Bob, Mike Ziegenhorn announces, okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back next and take your phone calls with head coach Bob Stoops. And I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure Bob just turned white, like taking phone calls. 15 more minutes. And I guess the story is that Bob's like, you guys, good luck with your phone calls. I'm done. And then they had like an entire outdoor studio set up, lighting, all this stuff. And I guess they weren't going to leave, so he just turned the lights off, like in his backyard, just leaving them standing there.
I hadn't heard that story. That must have been before we stopped taking calls on the radio show.
If Mike Ziegenhorn is around this year, you need to ask him about that question.
I will.
Or about that deal. But, I mean, like Bob, my point for telling that story is like Bob had to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
And Lincoln, I'm sure, will have to learn how to say no. Or I've only got 15 minutes. But he's not there yet. He's just starting.
I'll be indebted to Bob for the rest of my career, however long it may last, because, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I really don't, but I feel like that I can probably handle anything now. I mean, I feel like that whatever head coach comes my way in any sport, I can do it because I survived Bob. And I don't mean that.
That's not a bad thing.
I don't mean that in a bad way. It was great for honing your skills as a questioner, as an interviewer, making sure you ask good questions.
Because he was not having
I told you this last time.
Slappy questions.
So I will be forever grateful to him for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time.
I hope he's my partner someday. I think that would be fun.
If he was just doing stuff for Sooner Sports.
Color analyst for the radio crew.
Ooh,
wouldn't that be cool?
That would be impressive.
Yeah. I don't know if he has any desire. I broached the subject at a golf tournament with him this summer.
Did you?
And he said he didn't say no?
I think he's open, I think we both agree.
I mean, this would be years from now. I think it would be tough for him to do it with Lincoln, but
we both agree, don't we, that he is going to have some type of a media career?
I think that's a pretty good guess. I think it's going to be really hard for him to be away from the game.
Yeah.
It's too much a part of him.
It's just, I think he really needs to get through this year. I mean, to figure out.
Some form or fashion, he'll be a part of football.
Yeah. I think this is going to be probably one of the toughest things he's gone through in the last 18 years, is trying to figure out what to do with himself on game days.
Mm-hmm.
Where to be, where to watch it from.
He doesn't strike. He admires Spurrier so much, but they couldn't be more, in my opinion, opposite personality-wise. Like, I think Steve can walk around barefoot and no shirt and be happy golfing and fishing and all that kind of stuff. And while Bob loves to golf and he loves the beach, he's wound tighter than Steve is. Yeah. And I think when Saturdays roll around, he's going to want to compete or be around the competition in some way.
He's never wanted to admit it, but he is closer to Bill Snyder than he is to Steve Spurrier, and just how they operate. That'll make him. He
wouldn't admit that.
No,
you might be right.
And I've at one point, long time ago, I said something about Bill Snyder being his mentor, and he stopped me mid-sentence. He said, "No, Steve Spurrier is my mentor."
I think he strives to be more like Steve, but he may be naturally more like Bill. He's not sleeping in his office all night.
No, he's not a workaholic like he is. I mean,
he's more. You're probably right about that.
I would say that Spurrier has kept him from being more like Bill Snyder.
Probably.
With the whole family stuff.
Spurrier's been good for him, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to Lincoln. Now, have you... you're the play-by-play voice. I would imagine that you probably taken a practice or two here or there?
I will. I haven't. I usually try to go either this week or maybe next to one or two practices. And the sole reason I go is to memorize numbers and body types. I don't need to know game plan. I prefer not to know any game plan.
Yeah.
I don't want, if anything leaks, I don't want to be blamed for it. There's no reason for me to know what the game plan is against UTEP or Ohio State or anybody.
Or what Kyler Murray is going to be doing.
Kyler Murray is going to be doing. I don't need to know that. In many ways, it's better if I don't, because sometimes the natural surprise that comes through in your voice when you see a trick play fits better than if you knew it was coming.
I never thought of it that way.
So I'm not going to find out information just so I can be smarter than someone else or act like I'm smarter than someone else. But it is beneficial, I've learned, that with the new guys or number changes, if I could see it before they actually take the field, and I could see that's what CeeDee Lamb looks like in a uniform. That's what Charleston Rambo looks like in a uniform. I think we've had a couple of number changes this year. Some guys are tall and skinny. Some guys are. What does Jeff Badette look like? Some guys are stout, and when they catch the ball, I want to, as soon as possible, be able to identify who it is. So it is beneficial to just go lay eyes on them and make a few notes about that kind of stuff, so that you're not taken by surprise in the opener. But that's it. I don't need to be out there. I don't want to be. I know coaches get really squirmy about media being at their practices, and I have a radio show, and nobody's. Lincoln hasn't expressed that to me, but I just don't want there to be any lines that they feel like's being crossed. So,
what is your process when you're calling the game? Are you looking through binoculars the entire time? Do you have spotters for that shout out who catches it, who carries it, things like that?
Not so much for that. We do. I don't watch the game through binoculars. We have the highest press box that I've ever been in in Norman.
High, yeah.
So if you can see at Owen Field from the press box, you're good anywhere. So I don't watch the game through binoculars, but my spotter does. Okay. Greg Blackwood is my spotter, who sits to my left. Greg is an old buddy from Channel 9. He's the chief photographer. And the day I got the job, we were great friends at Channel 9. The day I got the job, he texted me and said, "If you ever need a spotter, I'll be your spotter for the rest of your life."
That's awesome.
And at the time, there was, I didn't know what was going to happen with the crew, whether I got to say who stays and who got. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I called him, and it's been a great relationship. And we, on game day, are tied together at the hip. There's a spotter board that sits between us, and I'll have the offense and defensive depth charts for both teams, and I'll call the play with my eyes as best I can. I'm following the ball. So Baker's got it. He throws out to the right, caught by Badette. He takes it forward, blah, blah, blah. If I don't immediately recognize who catches it or who the ball is handed to, let's say two guys have similar body types, or they're turned sideways or whatever, he may say something in my ear because he's in queue and he can't be heard on the broadcast.
Yeah.
So he may quickly say in my ear, Basquin. But that's pretty rare. He's a lot of times going to pick up on who makes the tackle, and he'll point to it more often than talk. We try not to talk just because, I don't want to distract from what I'm saying. He'll point on my spotter board with hand signals. This is the guy that made the tackle. This is the guy that had the lead block. This is the guy that had the pressure or the sack. These two guys' team. All the other stuff besides following the football, he's watching for. And any substitutions that go in and out while Merv is talking or Teddy or Chris are talking, he'll signal on the board, Rodney Anderson in, Abdul Adams out. Sometimes I will have seen it. Sometimes I will be looking at Merv or looking down writing on my drive chart and I've missed it. So that spotter is invaluable during the game. And he's watching on binoculars. I have binoculars, but I'm not using them while I call the game.
You think Merv would give you a hint as to when he decides he's had enough and wants to hang it up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Has he given you any hints?
No. No. We talk a lot during the season, not as much out, but during the season on the road, airplanes or restaurants. So, yeah, I think if that day came that he would give me a heads up.
Are you curious at all about, how long? I mean, he's your partner. Are you curious about, that's just natural to think, isn't it? Like, how much longer are we going to be together? How many more times are we going to do this?
I am curious because I'm afraid that he's going to want to do it without telling anybody and that we can't properly appreciate him.
Yeah.
I would like, he's so humble and so nice that my guess is he's going to say at the end of a year, whenever it is, that's it. And we're not going to get a chance to make a big deal
have
about
a year where you just celebrate.
He deserves that. I don't know. I think about it because I get asked about it from time to time. Who's going to be next? That's a popular debate or conversation. But it's his job for as long as he wants to do that. And I love the man. I dearly, dearly love Merv Johnson. And I think we've arranged it. Our hope is, and the feedback's been good, that with Teddy on the sidelines as kind of a second color analyst.
Yeah.
And he's added more and more as the years have gone along. He jumps in a lot. And that's a role that no other broadcast crew in America has. And we ask him to jump in a lot because we want that kind of second color analyst from the field role. That I think it has worked well, that as Merv has aged and Teddy moves in, that it's a good 1-2 punch. You got a guy who knows everything about offense and a guy who knows everything about defense. And Teddy will ask him questions, or Chris will ask him questions, or I will. And but yeah, I love that man. Love him.
Are you saying? I just want to be clear. Are you saying that in your mind Teddy is the natural successor?
Nope, I didn't say that at all.
Okay.
No, I'm saying that on our broadcast. When that day comes, that won't be my call. I mean, I may be asked for my opinion, but Joe Castiglione will make that decision. But
I think
on our current broadcast crew, the way we have set it up with Teddy being a sideline analyst, I think has helped fill in any gaps that we may have as we've gone on. Yeah, he's been fantastic. But I have no idea who's going to be next.
Am I wrong to say?
I do love Teddy Lehman. I do love Teddy Lehman.
Yeah.
I think he does a superb job, and he is great at getting a easy to understand point in a quick amount of time.
Yeah, that's really tough.
Which you got to do. You got to get in and out in like 8 to 10 seconds, and he can make complicated defensive schemes or offensive schemes understandable quickly. He's a great job.
is there? I mean, I know it's all set up. When you have radio, it's set up to where you're doing the broadcast. You have the sales supporting you, selling aspects of your broadcast. Is there? Do you feel like there's been any innovation in the way that games are called on the radio or broadcasted on the radio, or that there needs to be innovation moving forward?
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, and like I said, I admit this. I don't listen to your broadcast during the game.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. I need to start doing that.
You'd learn so much.
I know. I really
you
would.
Just think you're too smart. You can watch it with your own head.
I don't have an FM radio. I think it's
like $10.
I'm too lazy to go buy an
CVS
FM radio.
or Walgreens and get one for $10.
Well, I do have one, but it's on a Walkman.
I just
yellow
came in
Walkman.
here and poured my soul about how much I enjoy your podcast, how educated I am because I listen to it.
God, I'm just a horrible human being.
Jerk.
I know. I'm used to being called a jerk. I just mean in terms of, I know you try and you guys have a Twitter handle now, the OU on the air.
We've had it for several years.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm just saying, you're doing things that people haven't done before. Is that enough? Is that, having it where people can reach you during a game? Is there, I don't know, you've got a sideline guy, you got a color guy, you're the play-by-play guy. Is there something else out there that can change?
The innovation that has happened in the last 3 years, 5 years, maybe not that far, is the live streaming on phones and websites around the world. Mm-hmm. Not very long ago, if you weren't listening to one of our radio affiliates in Oklahoma or slightly beyond, you couldn't get the radio broadcast.
Yeah.
And so that has changed massively since I've taken over. Not because of me, but because of technology.
Yeah.
And now people all over we hear from every state in the United States. We hear from, and the fun thing about the Twitter feed that we do is it allows people to contact us during games, football, basketball, baseball, and let us know where they're listening from. We listen from we hear from military people in Afghanistan. We hear from people in China, Japan, Russia, all over the planet, who because of technology can now listen to our radio broadcast, which is so cool. So I think I don't know what the next innovation is. I think for on air, I think honestly,
or does there need to be any innovation? Is broadcasting a game over the radio, is it been perfected? Is it as good as it could be?
I don't know about that. I think probably there is a shift taking place like it is with our radio shows, from radio to streaming services. And the fact that you can hear your radio show now in the morning streaming anywhere in the world, and mine as well, and all that kind of stuff.
Your parents listen to your show in the morning?
Mm-hmm, but they live here. But yeah, they do. My dad does.
My parents do the same.
I think that's, I don't know that I would say it's been perfected. I think that the constant effort for the radio guys in our business is, what can we provide that would cause people to want to listen to us when the game is on television?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our charge. Every game is, we got to give more information, more detailed information, more stats, more information from the sidelines.
Yeah.
We've got to have the inside knowledge from Merv about offensive schemes and from Teddy on defensive schemes, that whatever color analyst who has flown in here for the week to call the game on television, who looks good in a suit, can't possibly tell these people. And I think that's why we have an audience. I think that's why people bring their headphones to games.
Yeah.
I think that's why people turn down their TVs and turn up their radios, is because they know they're going to get more information and better information, we hope, from our radio broadcast. And honestly, Oklahoma we have tried to be on the cutting edge of how we do a college radio broadcast. And I think, we've been pretty good at that by adding sideline analysts and some of the things we've done interactively with fans that nobody else in the country was doing, that now they're starting to copy.
Yeah.
Chris Plank in the dugout during baseball games was something nobody ever heard of, and Sonny and then Pete allowed us to do that, and on and on. So it's been fun to try to come up with creative ways to give people a reason to turn down the TV and turn up the radio.
That's what we hope. Let me ask you this. Have you ever kind of fought to try and this is, I'm sure this would never happen with Bob, but to be able to replay what's said at halftime in the locker room. Like a wire, if you will, like an NBA game. We haven't mentioned. Hold on, folks. It is 50. We're 54 seconds into this podcast, and there's been no NBA ribbing
54
whatsoever.
Minutes?
54 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, we're not going there today. We have done that with Lon. Mm-hmm. He has allowed us to.
Yeah, that's true, and it's been out on social. I know what you're talking about.
I don't know if we've done. We've done halftime. We've done halftime. I remember Stillwater.
Halftime?
No. Basketball.
Okay.
There was a Bedlam game in Stillwater a couple of years ago when OU was losing at halftime, and he kind of got after him a little bit and allowed us to record it and play it back. That's when Scott Thompson was our color guy. So Scott was a coach and was in halftime and postgame with him. And then we started recording on our phones, whoever the color analyst was, Kevin Henry now, his postgame remarks to the team when they gather all up, and playing that back in the postgame show. Now, that's Lon Kruger, and you don't have to worry about what's going to be said.
Right.
So getting...
But, I mean, if you're the official broadcaster, I guess you have to build up a certain amount of trust that you're not going to, either you're going to bleep it out or you're not going to put something on there that is derogatory towards a single player, not calling a kid out or something. But, if a coach is in there screaming, defense, we have to do this better. And if I know I'm going to hear that stuff before the second half kicks off,
right,
I'm tuning in, baby.
Yeah, I got you. And I would love to. I think it's pretty far-fetched because I think most football locker rooms, not just Oklahoma, I think most football locker rooms, the amount of editing that would have to be done after a halftime speech would be astronomical, and there would be a whole lot of faith that they would have to have in us not putting something up that they didn't want to hear. Game plan-wise for opponents, they're very guarded about, there have been occasions of opposing coaches listening to pregame shows for other teams, trying to get insight on what game plans may be and all that kind of stuff. So I think while your scenario would be fascinating, I think it's pretty far-fetched.
I'm thinking that's what half of Saban's staff does, is they just listen to the pregame show.
I have learned that football coaches go to, not ours necessarily, but the industry goes to great lengths to try to get any edge that they possibly can. So, I think that's probably pretty far-fetched.
That's just it's kind of sad because it I hate it for you guys because the fans will say, "Oh, well, these guys they're just paid mouthpieces. They don't never tell you anything good." You guys want to do a lot of things that nobody can do.
How do you know? You don't listen to our broadcast. You're just making stuff up right now. How do you know what we do and don't do?
Are you going to turn this table over?
No, I think we get, whether it's
no, but I'm just saying
pregame interviews day of that nobody else gets, halftime interviews walking off the field that nobody else gets.
Yeah.
We get the first crack before Bob goes, or now Lincoln, before they go to the microphone, they're coming to us. Mm-hmm. So the very first opportunity to hear what Lincoln Riley has to say after a game and a whole lot of his players is on our broadcast, and that's good and bad. Nobody's trying to sugarcoat that.
Yeah.
So. I think we offer from that perspective, and it's certainly not on the television broadcast. I think we offer a lot of stuff that you don't get anywhere else, which is why, like I said, more people are listening now than ever have. So it's great.
I guess really what I wanted to ask, but asked it poorly, was we talk about innovating things like that. You see it with, especially in the NBA, like the Houston Rockets, but. It gets to, and you would never be a guy that's going to be like taking cheap shots at another team, things like that, because that's what Houston does a lot. But they kind of have embraced, the way that the fan feels sometimes, being critical, more critical maybe than other people would be when things go wrong, doing things, to kind of, I'm trying to think of a good example, like they have that thing on screen where they shoot missiles at people or rockets at people that are wearing the opposing jersey and stuff like that.
Oh, what are you talking about right now? Who's shooting rockets at people?
The Houston Rockets.
Oh,
like in their
in-game?
Yeah, in their in-game stuff.
Okay.
But here's my question.
Okay.
It's really
beat around the bush and ask me the question, Carey.
Do you think that you should be a little bit critical or provide a critical analysis, is that an innovation that broadcasts could make? And I maybe Merv loses his mind, more than I think he does on the broadcast. As you said,
Merv gets upset a lot. First off, it's a good question. That's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
My job is the play-by-play guy.
Yeah.
So my job is not necessarily to give you any opinions at all. Now, you may be able to tell through the excitement in my voice that I'm happier that Oklahoma scored a touchdown than the opposing team scored a touchdown. But it's not my job to be critical of anybody.
Even the refs?
Maybe the refs. But I'm just saying,
The poor refs.
I certainly throw in opinions from time to time.
Yeah.
But I'm supposed to tell you who, what, when, and where, and somebody else is supposed to tell you why and how. So
let me interrupt you unprofessionally. Basically, you feel like you provide the ebbs and the flows through the emotion of the call. If it's a fumble,
yeah,
you can't say, why did you do that? But
I think the number
you need to show the fans like you're disappointed that there was a fumble.
I think that the percentage of people who wish their hometown broadcast, which is what we're providing, was more critical of the hometown team is pretty small.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about a few people who are on message boards and who are on Twitter who are living it and dying it. And the vast majority of people are listening to us because they know we're rooting for OU. They don't want to hear the feedback we get is Herb Street's being too hard on us tonight. I'm turning it over to Toby. Or so-and-so doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm turning it over to the OU radio broadcast. And I'm not saying that I feel like our broadcast is overly homerish any more than any other local broadcast is. Certainly we're rooting for Oklahoma. And we're excited when Oklahoma scores, and we're down in the dumps when Oklahoma loses. But I believe that I try to call it like it is. If it was a bad throw, I say that was a bad throw.
Yeah.
If somebody should have caught the ball, I say he dropped it. If
it went right through his hands or something like that.
If somebody got burned, I'm going to tell you the name of the cornerback that got burned. So I don't think we're sugarcoating anything necessarily, or going out of the way to be overly optimistic and all that kind of stuff. I think it is just natural, and it's what people want, and it's why it's still popular, that your team's broadcast is rooting for your team. And if you want other options, they exist. When Oklahoma plays Ohio State, you can listen to the Ohio State broadcast, and they're going to be rooting for Ohio State. And you can listen to the TV broadcast, and they're hopefully going to be playing it down the middle. So you kind of got three options there.
Yeah. We're going to wrap things up. I'm going to let you go. But was the Texas Tech game last year different from any other game that you remember calling?
It's the worst read I've ever had on reaction, because I thought that was an unbelievable football game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm witnessing. Were you there?
Yes.
Okay. I'm watching it live, and the volleying back and forth and the unbelievable one-handed catches and runs and plays, and was just I've never seen a shootout like that.
Yeah.
It was so exciting. And so when it was over and Oklahoma won the game, my read was, wow, what an unbelievable game we just witnessed. That was my read.
Uh-huh.
My first inclination that I had a bad read on it was Teddy. Because when we went to post-game reaction, he was down in the dumps. He was like, like they had lost. Like his reaction was, this was I'm paraphrasing, but this was a terrible night for OU.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's an interesting take. Oklahoma just won this game, a game for the ages. Oklahoma just won. I mean, they'll be talking about this game for centuries. And I remember we wrapped up the post-game, and we stayed in Lubbock that night. My boys were with me, and I hopped on Twitter after the game, or I guess it was. That's all I'm on is Twitter and Instagram. And I saw the reaction from OU fans. I was like, I got a bad read on this one because they're ticked. OU fans are not happy they won this game tonight. They're ticked.
Did it never go through your head, like during the game, like this is not? Because I remember what was going through my head was, this is not what I came for. This is not what I signed up for, to watch this type of This is not football to me.
I don't remember feeling anything, and I'm admitting my own idiocy here. I don't remember feeling anything different than when I watched the OU West Virginia game in Morgantown that was 50-49 and had the incredible finish, and Tavon Austin was running anywhere. I mean, obviously the defense needed to be better, but OU won the game. They won an unbelievable game. And I'm not justifying. I'm just telling you how I felt. That night, did they not have P. Ryan that night?
No, that was pre-P. Ryan.
No. The Texas Tech game this past year.
Yeah, it was just Joe Mixon.
Yeah, Mixon had to carry the load. Somebody else was hurt. And it was always going to be tough to go beat the Tech. I'm not going to be tough, but I mean, it was Patrick Mahomes, and it was, the shootout. Baker's coming home. There was some build-up for that game. And it was a shootout, and the defense wasn't very good, but they found a way to win a road game, and it was darn exciting. I mean, it was exciting. And I just had a bad read. I mean, that's all. I didn't anticipate that it would be that poorly received on television. I think on television,
I was curious, how I remember after that being over, I was curious. I'm trying to think where we even stayed in Lubbock, but I was curious to see how ESPN was going to categorize that game, because they could have gone a number of different ways. I think they could have gone what an incredible shootout. This was one of college best, football.
I thought we just
saw
one of the greatest college football games of all time. Is what I thought we just saw.
But other than kind of just ignoring it, they focused on the fact that Mahomes threw for 811 yards or total offense or whatever he had that night.
Certainly an embarrassing defensive performance. There's no doubt. But that happens sometimes because
it just doesn't happen at OU.
No, not that. I'm saying games play on television different than when you're in the house sometimes. You know this from being in a stadium. Sometimes they won't see a replay, or the announcers on TV will call it differently or whatever, and a fan watching at home on television will not see a play or a drive or a key possession or a game the same way you do if you're in the stadium. Mm-hmm. Certainly not describe it the same way you do if you're in the stadium, which is kind of cool. I mean, that kind of gives you different options. But that night, the most off I've ever been about what a fan reaction would be to a game. And that's my fault. I mean, that's just something you got to kind of learn from and know next time you're in this situation. I wonder how this is going home.
You're not a Catholic. But
can I give you an example of that?
Yeah, sure.
Before you move on. That was kind of the opposite of the OU Tennessee game in some ways, because the OU offense was terrible.
3.5 quarters, yeah.
At Tennessee,
yeah.
They couldn't get a first down.
Yeah, no, that's a good example.
They were tripping all over themselves. Was Baker Mayfield about to be pulled?
Yeah,
remember that? They kept showing Trevor on the sidelines.
Broadcast, yeah.
Terrible. And then it ended the way it did, and it was one of the great games of all time. Kind of my feeling about Texas Tech was similar to that. Listen, the defense was bad tonight, but holy cow, they won this game. And I was just wrong.
But there's so many factors at play. I think the fact that the Big 12 is so maligned for not playing defense.
Yep, that's a part of it. Yep.
That OU was a part of this, and that they are supposed to be the ones that are the defenders of that perception.
Yep, you're right.
Or railing against that perception.
If that game had been Oklahoma against Tennessee and they had a shootout, it would have been a little different because it wouldn't have been so embarrassing for the Big 12.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my bad.
You're not a Catholic, as far as I know, never have been. So I'm curious how much you looked forward to calling a game at Notre Dame. Going to Columbus, Ohio, September 9th, where does the excitement level rank of all the places that you've gone to call a game?
I think that from a setting standpoint, Notre Dame is the road game I've looked the most forward to. Not from an importance of the game standpoint, but just, being in that stadium, touchdown Jesus, the campus, Rudy, the history of Notre Dame. I anticipated that the most. And I really looked forward to going to Tennessee, and I really looked forward to going to Florida State, but I think that ranks at the top. But certainly am massively, massively looking forward to going to Ohio State, because I think the importance of this football game exceeds, from a ratings, from where these two teams are rated, any of these other big road games we've had in recent years, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. OU Florida State they were both really highly ranked. Weren't they both in the top 5 when they played that game at Tallahassee?
Didn't OU start number 1 that year?
I might be right.
And that's when Bob
both really high.
That's when Bob did the Oklahoma City Caravan. It's time to win another national title.
Your memory's better than mine, but I know they were both ranked really high. Tennessee, not as much. Notre Dame, not as much. What's the game I'm forgetting here? There's been another. Miami was when I was on the sidelines, not as much. I feel like I'm forgetting one of these big road trips lately. But I mean, this is going to be assuming both teams take wins in week 1. This is a top 10, maybe top 5 showdown on the road in one of the historic venues in college football. So I'm pretty amped. I think all Sooner fans are pretty amped.
You have one game that you've called.
And after this podcast, I plan on ripping OUs every time they do something wrong. I'm gonna rip them.
See, I'm getting into list of questions, which we said was bad, but all these things keep flying into my mind. I'm curious, like if you have, let's say, Toby Rowland's career is over, of your own desire, and up to this point, if you have to have one game that fans sit and listen to that makes you proud to have called, what would that game be?
Any sport? Or football?
Football.
I think the best broadcast that we've done is the Sugar Bowl win over Alabama. There's many others there's others I'm proud of. I think the Tennessee broadcast was a good night. That was fun.
Why the Sugar Bowl? What
you
was
have
it
to
about
have
that
a
night?
good game to have a good broadcast.
Yeah.
I mean, the game has to have drama in it for your broadcast to kind of live. That technically it was perfect. I mean, we had a great night technically, which doesn't always happen. There's a lot going on in a radio broadcast. I think just everybody was on point on our broadcast that night, and the dramatic moments in that game. The playback, they lived up to how dramatic they were in person. Like when I heard it back, I very rarely am pleased when I hear it back.
You listen to your shows back?
I'll listen to big moments. I'll listen to big moments back, or if I think something went poorly, I'll listen back and say, how could we have done that better? I listened to that whole game back. They replayed it several times and on the local affiliate, and they sent it out on social media. And the big moments, the scoop and the score, and some of the Trevor's touchdown passes and all that kind of stuff, I was happy. And it was a big game, and that some of those highlights live to this day, and I'm okay with them. And that's not always the case. So if there was one game, I would probably, right now anyway, pick that one.
Do you because you are calling a game like that, do you almost always remember who threw the pass, who caught the pass, who made the tackle, who made the interception? Like, do you remember you're talking about the scoop and the score?
Geno Grissom.
It was Geno Grissom, right? Did he scoop it and score?
Eric Stryker hit him.
Okay.
Hit AJ, and the ball bounced, and Geno scooped and scored. Probably most of them. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you've said it and you've heard it.
Yeah.
So it tends to stick in your mind.
All right. I think I've exhausted myself. I hope you can carry on with the rest of your day.
Are you going to get to take a nap after this? I mean,
well, there's no practice tonight, so
yeah.
It's going to take about it. It's really sad. We can sit and record a podcast. It seems like it takes about 4 hours to get it up to where everybody can listen to it. So got some work ahead.
Well, I'm honored that you asked me to be on again with you. So
I'm honored that you.
I promise next podcast we'll get back to recruiting.
I was thinking, I felt really bad for you this year because everybody's winning national championships, yet nobody did one in any of the sports that you call.
Well, there you go. Just pouring salt in the wound again. I mean,
I'm saying I felt bad. It's your due. How about that?
Nobody felt worse than me. Yeah, Chris Plank reminds me on a
Was
daily
it FOMO,
basis,
fear of missing out,
of how many national championships he's got and how many I don't have. So
and he gets rings and stuff for that.
You'll have to ask him. I have to ask him. Patty's pretty generous, so I would imagine so. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Are you going to listen this year?
Yes, I'm going to go get a FM radio.
Are you telling me the truth?
I'm going to listen, and you can quiz me.
All right. Well, we even broadcast on the road. Did you know that?
And I know that there's a frequency in stadium that you can listen to.
Okay. I'm honored. Let me know what you think. let me know.
Critique you?
Yeah, let me know what you like.
You know what you're doing.
No, let me know what you like and what you don't like. From a broadcast standpoint, what could be better? Okay. You've got a good ear for producing, so look at all the setup you got here. You know what you're doing.
I pretend well. Yeah. I'll just say that. All right, Toby, I really appreciate it. Good luck to you this season. For you, I'll root a little bit in the press box deep inside that maybe you can get your national championship. Just because we're friends.
Well, thank you. But
I won't cheer. I won't break any rules.
It would be fun. It would be fun to call in some sport a national championship. It'll happen. It'll happen.
That's actually... Okay, I'm going to ask you one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up an OU fan.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Do you think you could go sit in a press box after, if you just decided to give this up and you got a job, for a TV station making $500,000 a year or something, and you had to take it?
Thank you for that salary, by the
way. Do you think you could just sit in a press box and just watch a game?
Yeah.
Can you go back there?
You mean, and not cheer?
Not cheer,
not
call,
participate,
or just shout out.
It's hard for me to watch.
Kyler Murray.
It's hard for me to watch
CD
a
Lamb.
game that I'm invested in, and it's part of the reason I'm in this business. It's hard to watch a game that I'm invested in who I want to win.
Yeah,
Thunder or OU or whoever, and not do something. It's hard for me just to sit and watch. So
when you watch,
I would keep notes. I would keep drive charts. If I was in that situation, I would do what you're probably doing. I'd probably keep drive charts and something just to busy me.
Yeah.
But just as far as going and sitting in the stands and watching a game, that would be hard. Although, if your kids are with you and you're busy and all that kind of stuff, I'd probably be okay.
I've done it periodically over the years. It weirds me out, like sitting in the stands as a fan. I'm so uncomfortable. Like, I've lost the ability to do that.
Here's a depressing thought.
For OU games, like Thunder games, even like Curtis and I have gone to a Thunder game together. He and a buddy have season tickets, and we were both
never asked me, but yeah,
I don't. He's
never asked me. I'm saying
but even both of us sitting there, it was kind of weird. Like, everyone around you was cheering and jumping up and fist pumping,
bay hailing.
And it really is. It's been bred out of you. Like,
I don't cheer much when I go to games. Not OU games. Other games.
Yeah.
Thunder games, baseball games, Major League Baseball games, whatever. I'm a pretty passive observer, and I think it's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's years and years of being, taught you don't cheer when you go to games.
And I'll be honest. I'll admit this. I do root on the inside, and it's not so much because it's OU, but it's because that coach is nice to me. That kid's a good quote. I want to see him do well. I don't want the quarterback to be pissed off after this game because I want a good interview out of him.
I'm sure it's better for your business when Oklahoma
I don't
wins.
want people to melt down on the message boards. I don't want them to come after us and threaten to cancel because OU lost.
It's better for your business if they win, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things around you that make you want the team that you're covering to win, unless you just hate the coach or the people. And that's what, I think that's what the Thunder kind of gets a little bit, is that, they're so, they basically have like I think OU should have an area where just overflow media can go. Like, maybe they're a producer at a local radio station. They're not on-air talent or something. But it's like, I wish OU kind of did that more, like spreading goodwill in the media, instead of making it so difficult for people to get, credentials and things like that.
Is it hard still? Is it hard?
I think for some people, for me, that's all I do.
Mm-hmm. How many do you get for shoot or scoop?
We can get 3.
Okay.
Probably 4 if we needed to get 2 on the field, which is a long way from having to have a radio job, working for a jerk. that controlled my credential. I know you
Right.
can't say anything.
I think we talked about it last time I was
Did
on
we?
the air. So yeah. But you wish there was an overflow media so more media could get in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be better for OU and just goodwill toward everyone in the media, because like you don't find like producers that have a grudge against the Thunder, but because they can,
TJ does.
TJ does.
Yeah, he hates the Thunder.
Does he really?
Yeah, he's a Mavericks fan.
Oh well, yeah. That's just a fan thing, though.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is like, it's like goodwill, hospitality.
Is the Thunder pretty free with their credentials?
You can go to a game if you're sweeping the floors at a radio station.
Really?
You could probably go to a game. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's kind of their culture with the media. Now, they're not going to give you a one-on-one interview with Russell Westbrook unless you're Royce Young or,
Right.
Why am I blanking on who covers them for the Oklahoman? Because they keep changing. So
it's not Darnell anymore.
No, Eric Horn and
Barry Trammell. Not getting a one-on-one with Russ.
Dawson. Yeah, Barry. I don't think that's.
I would
happening.
I would like to hear that one-on-one. That'd be good.
Did you know that what we did at Al's roast? We had Al had a roast,
Right, I heard about it.
and Barry had a great opening to his, and he said, "Al, I'm going to tell you how much you mean to the station and me. As I went, and I got a special message to you from Russell Westbrook," and he takes a step back, he points to the screen, and then it just starts playing static. It was pretty funny.
That's pretty good.
So
That's pretty good.
all right, well, hey, good luck this season.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure I will see you around.
All right, keep killing it with the podcast. You guys are great.
Well, I appreciate that, and you keep killing it with Landers, Chevrolet, Chrysler,
All
Jeep,
new
Dodge.
Landers, Chrysler,
Yeah.
Jeep, Dodge of Norman. Go buy your cars at Landers, folks.
All right, Toby Rowland, thanks so much. The second annual Voice of the Sooners season preview. We'll see you guys next time. Back when we're with the Unofficial 40 podcast. Thanks for listening, guys.